Hey guys, Ranger Pete here. Another installation of RTSP. Let's drop some knowledge. Today we'll be talking about a couple of the little fundamentals of marksmanship. I'm not getting this whole drawn out thing about who's shooting what, sight alignment, like a lot of people do. I'm not professing to be some tactical guru, but over the last 30 years of having a firearm in my hand, I picked up a couple good tips. All right, so one of the basic fundamentals in marksmanship is sight alignment. And when we talk about sight alignment, it's a very simple principle, and I try to make it as uncomplicated as possible. Sight alignment is nothing more than taking your rear sight, lining up with your front sight. You want equal distance and equal light between the front sight post and the rear, and you want it to line up level, flat on flat. So when we bring the firearm up, we're looking through the rear sight, picking up the front sight. And what I tell people is, whoever created us is a pretty cool cat, right? However, he has not given us the ability to focus on two things at two different distances. So you gotta pick one. So if you're gonna try and focus on the target while shooting, it's not gonna work because you're gonna mess up the whole sight alignment deal. You have to focus on your front sight post. The front sight post is important. So as you bring the firearm up to bear, you bring it up to your eyes, you pick up that front sight post immediately, you're focused on the front sight post, and you can get that good sight picture and sight alignment. Equally as important as sight alignment and sight picture is trigger squeeze. And what I've learned over the years is I try to teach it's not so much trigger squeeze as it is trigger compression. Because what we like to teach is that we're actually not squeezing the trigger back. What we're actually doing is taking a steady, even compression of our finger rearward. And a lot of people, where they find, and I'll turn the firearm upside down just so to illustrate it, if you just mosh the trigger back, you can see that the gun's gonna shake around a lot. What we try to teach is to have a nice easy compression. Slow, 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 slow. And if you hit YouTube or any of the other tactical gurus and the guys that have been doing this for years and years, they're always gonna say that it should surprise you when the firearm goes off. So I'm not like making anything up that nobody's putting out there on the interwebs, but it should surprise you. And you'll get good, consistent groupings if you practice the simple principles: sight alignment, sight picture, trigger squeeze or compression, and then we're gonna talk about follow through. Another thing that's really important in the fundamentals of marksmanship is follow through. And a lot of guys out on the range, or when I come in to walk the line, as I like to call it, I see guys who are taking good shots, but they're over exaggerating what they're doing. So what I see is a lot of this. They'll squeeze the trigger, gun goes bang, does what it does, and then they'll be like this, looking over the top to see if they hit anything. Well, that split second of you being admiring your handiwork, well, that can change the trajectory of your bullet, especially as you shoot further and further out. So what we recommend and what we teach is as you take that shot, gun will do what it does, up, down, and pick up that front sight post again. Because if you're doing combat shooting, you're shooting at somebody, somebody breaks in your house, you get into a situation where you're gonna actually get into a gunfight. You wanna take a couple things into consideration when we're talking about follow through. One, the shot that I shot, did it work? Did I hit somebody and did it work? Did it neutralize the threat? And two, if it didn't work, what do we have to do? We gotta reapply. So if we don't have a good sight picture on our follow through shots, up, down, reacquire that front sight post, sight alignment, sight picture on the target. If I have to reapply, then I can reapply. If not, I can bring the firearm back in, I can assess my threat, look right, look left, and make sure that I've completed what I need to do. All right, the last thing I'm gonna touch on today, and I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there, and you can rewind back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, just to see what I'm saying. But the last thing we're talking about is breathing. And the first time somebody told me that when I shoot a firearm, I had to breathe was in 1986 in basic training. And what they teach, and they still teach it today, is the whole principle of taking a good breath in, letting it out, and at the back end of that breath, you're gonna squeeze and compress the trigger. If you're doing distance shooting, shooting through an optic, a scope, that's the only way where you're gonna get good, consistent shots. And you can translate that into marksmanship shooting out on the range. It's not a combat shooting, right? We're not picking up front sight post flashing, going, no, it doesn't work that way. We're gonna take these shots for distance shots, shooting at 25 yards, or shooting match shooting, something where it's not timed, where you can take that good breath, that breath in, and slow, steady compression of the trigger. You'll find that the steadiest part of your muzzle, and as you watch the muzzle move around, you'll steady it the best if you take that good breath in, let it out, and then compress on the trigger. So what we talked about today, we talked about sight alignment, we talked about sight picture, we talked about trigger squeeze or compression, we talked about follow through, and we talked about breathing. This is Ranger Pete, RTSP, dropping some knowledge.